Now, as far as the rest of the setup goes, I'm going to take my A&D and I'm just going to run a nice smooth line. Now that's going to be used to lubricate the actual skin when I'm tattooing. And I'm also going to give myself a little bit of A&D right there. And what that's going to do is hold my ink cap for me. Like so. Now basically what that's for is when I fill this up with ink and I'm dipping back and forth during the tattoo, this just gives a little bit of suction, holds it in place, and keeps me from spilling it or making a mess, you know. It's just a little simple, very straightforward, small little trick to keep your ink cap where it belongs instead of making a mess all over the table. Next step would be your spray bottle. Now with the spray bottle, you have to have barrier film. You need to protect that because when you're tattooing, you're going to have various types of contamination, whether it's A&D or ink or blood or various other type of things are going to be on your skin that's going to be touching your gloves, and then whatever else you touch, you're going to cross-contaminate that. So you need to have a barrier on that. And they make, there are different companies that make different types of barrier films. You can use a plastic bag, like something similar to a lunch bag. You can use barrier film, which is tape, which is a wide sticky tape. The cheapest, most simplest way to do it is to use any particular brand of plastic wrap or saran wrap. This is very thin, it's very cheap, very easy to use, and it is in fact impervious. So that means anything that touches this will not go through. Now again, as you can see, I'm wearing gloves through this entire setup, which will keep any possible contaminants on my hand from dirtying up everything I'm touching right now. And basically, you just want to wrap this in saran wrap. Put a couple of pieces of tape on it just to ensure that it's not going anywhere. I'm just going to use one piece of tape. And next step would be your ink. Now, when I'm pouring ink, I take a paper towel. This bottle of Dynamic has a marble inside of it. And now what that does, because ink is comprised of different types of materials, and those different materials are going to, over time, separate themselves. So if you were to look at this, if it was a clear bottle, you would see different layers of stuff in there. And you want to mix that all together so it's nice and smooth and actually ready to use for a tattoo. So this has a marble in it, and you want to just give this a good mix to make sure all those materials are nice and evenly dispersed. Now, if you notice, I'm keeping a paper towel on the tip of this with my finger. Now, that's just in case some bottles, the cap is on there relatively loose or just not designed well, or sometimes what will happen is over a prolonged period of use of the cap coming on and off, you'll get a little bit of residual ink inside of the cap and on the tip, and when you try to close it and open it again, it'll build up and build up a little bit. So over time, the cap won't sit on there perfectly. So if you're in the middle of a tattoo and you just start shaking the bottle, you don't even realize it, and you start spraying ink all over everything. So it's just a good rule of thumb to just take a little piece of paper towel and put your finger over it. So anytime you shake it, it ensures you from making a big mess all over it and taking about a half an hour out of your time. So once I've given this a good shake, I twist the bottle off, and as you can see, there's a little bit of air bubbles in there. Paper towel will also keep those air bubbles from spilling all over the place. And just gently tilt the bottle. And it doesn't really matter how big the cap you're using, just go ahead and fill the whole cap up. case any drops on the bottle. Tighten it up, and as you're tightening it, it goes ahead and cleans the tip, and again, avoids any kind of mess you could be making in the future. Now, the next step would be what I spoke about before, is the paper towels. Now, what I like to do, I lay my paper towels out. And what works best for me is layers of 6. Scissors tend to cut through about 6 paper towels just fine. Any more, it tends to bind up a little bit, and there's no point in cutting less. So I do a couple layers of 6. Take my scissors and just cut them right down the middle. Okay, so that concludes the actual setup, and this is a complete setup ready to do a tattoo. And my next step will be moving on to tattoo and demonstrating that.